The Black Hand was a Serbian secret society founded in 1911 by military officers who wanted to unite Bosnians, Croats and Slovenians into a single state. It was built on a 5-member cell structure, reporting to district committees, which then answered to the bosses in Belgrade, and ultimately to Colonel Apis Dimitrijevic. Members swore absolute loyalty and secrecy. The organization trained guerrillas, ran sabotage networks, and carried out political assassination while exerting influence over the Serbian military and government. The group's most infamous act was its role in the 1914 assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. Apis personally ordered the plot, bypassing the rest of the leadership, and arranged for young Bosnian Serbs Gavrilo Princip, Nedeljko Kabrinovic and Trifko Grabes to be trained and smuggled into Bosnia with bombs, pistols and cyanide. While the motives remain debated, whether to resist Austria-Hungary's control of Bosnia, destabilize Serbia's own government, or even just embarrass Prime Minister Nikola Pašic, the ploy set off a chain reaction that spiraled into World War I. In 1917, the Serbian government, increasingly threatened by the Black Hand's unchecked power, staged a military trial against its leaders, dismantling the organization. Yet in 1938, a group called Konspiracija was founded to overthrow the Yugoslav Regency, modeled directly after the Black Hand and supported by former members. The Khazarian Mafia. The Khazars were a semi-nomadic Turkic people who built the Khazar Khaganate, a major trading hub between Eastern Europe and Western Asia around 650 AD. By the 8th century, their rulers reportedly adopted Judaism as a state religion. Medieval accounts describe a ruling elite that converted, but modern historians question whether there was ever a mass conversion. The empire collapsed by the late first millennium after invasions from Russia and neighboring powers, and records of Jewish communities in the region disappear for centuries, until they re-emerge in medieval Eastern Europe. Some conspiracy narratives allege the Khazars maintained a mafia-like structure, fleeing westward after their kingdom's fall and resurfacing as the so-called Khazarian Mafia. This theory ties them to revolutions in Europe, the rise of banking networks, and even the hiring of Oliver Cromwell to overthrow King Charles I. It has since evolved into an anti-Semitic belief that Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from ancient Israelites, but from converted Khazars, who supposedly infiltrated Europe, finance and politics. The most influential modern source of this claim is Austro-Hungarian's Arthur Koestler's 1976 book The 13th Tribe. Although Koestler intended it to undermine racial antisemitism, the thesis has been widely rejected by historians and genetic findings, which consistently show Ashkenazi Jews share ancestry with Sephardic Jews and other Middle Eastern populations, not with Turkic Khazars. Despite this, the Khazar theory gained traction in political contexts, with figures like Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas citing it to question Jewish ties to Israel. In the 21st century, the clandestine Khazarian Mafia narrative sparked more speculative claims, alleging they control global finance, Zionism, or American politics. Since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, pro-Kremlin propaganda has revived the trope, framing Ukraine as part of a Khazarian project to rebuild the Khazar state. Researchers have debunked these claims, highlighting them as anti-Semitic conspiracies and myths. The Hellfire Club was a name used for several secretive and notorious clubs in 18th century Britain and Ireland, most famously Francis Dashwood's Order of the Friars of St. Francis of Wickham. These groups were composed of aristocrats and politicians who indulged in heavy drinking, gambling, blasphemy, and excessive orgies. Meetings were held in taverns or members' homes under the motto, "Do what you want." A golden ball to reflect sunlight was used as a signaling device for meetings. High-profile members such as Founding Father Benjamin Franklin, multiple members of parliament, and even the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury joined. The Hellfire Caves in Buckinghamshire was their venue for week-long parties and pagan rituals. Secret initiation ceremonies involved members wearing white robes, while the leader wore red, with accounts of unholy baptisms and even rumors of human sacrifice. To keep secrecy, Paul Whitehead destroyed its records in a 76-hour bonfire before his death. The Hellfire Club apparently disbanded in 1776. Dashwood's nephew, Joseph Alderson, later founded the Vehmic Society in 1781 at Oxford's Brasenose College, which evolved into the Phoenix Common Room in 1954. The Leopard Society was a secretive cult in West and Central Africa, accused of ritual sacrifice and cannibalism from the late 19th to mid-20th century. Members allegedly wore leopard skins and used metal claws on their victims so that attacks appeared to be work of leopards. Their rituals were linked to the preparation of a magical substance called morphema, made from body parts, blood and fat, which they believed to grant supernatural powers. Initiates sometimes had to provide sacrificial victims, even from their own families, whose flesh was consumed in communal feasts to demonstrate loyalty. Colonial records detail outbreaks of violence blamed on the society in Sierra Leone, Eastern Congo, and the 1940s in Nigeria, where more than 200 deaths were attributed to the cult and 77 suspects were executed. While colonial authorities portrayed the Leopard Society purely as a dangerous cult, modern scholars argue its activities also served as a defense against European control. The Carbonari were a secret revolutionary network in Italy between 1800 and 1831, dedicated to overthrowing oppressive regimes and promoting national unification. Members were identified as rural charcoal burners, organized in small cells called vendite. They operated much like the Freemasons, relying on coded handshakes, passwords, and complex initiation ceremonies in which members swore loyalty and commitment under the threat of severe punishment for betrayal. Italy at the time was dominated by the Austrian Empire and the French Bourbon dynasty. The Carbonari pushed for constitutional governments, freedom from foreign rule, and a united Italy. They played a direct role in uprisings, including revolts in the Kingdom of Naples in 1820 and Sardinia in 1821. Both demanded liberal constitutions and initially won concessions, but Austrian intervention and conservative crackdowns ultimately crushed them. Though unsuccessful, these efforts left a mark. Figures such as Giuseppe Mazzini and Giuseppe Garibaldi carried forward their ideals. Mazzini's Young Italy directly built on Carbonari influence and became central to the Risorgimento, the struggle for Italian unification. Carbonari ideals spread to France, Portugal, Spain, Brazil, Uruguay, the Ottoman Empire, and Russia. In the United States, some claim that George Nicholas Sanders used the Young America movement as a Carbonari front, linking it to European revolutions and even to American politics. Sanders, involved in the communist revolutions of 1848 in Europe and later US consul in London, reportedly hosted a dinner attended by radical leaders, including the head of the Carbonari, at the home of future President James Buchanan, where open calls were made for the assassination of Napoleon III and the overthrow of European monarchies. The Club of Rome was founded in 1968 by leaders from politics, business and science who shared concerns about the future of humanity and the planet. Membership has reportedly been very selective and limited to around 100 people, often including former heads of state, UN officials and business leaders. Its most infamous work is the 1972 report The Limits to Growth, which examined the consequences of unlimited population and economic growth and warned of collapse by 2030 if changes were not made. One proposed solution was voluntary population reduction, which drew heavy criticism. The group predicted that a new global system would be needed to address future crises. These statements were interpreted by critics as evidence of a push toward a new world order. Closed-door meetings and influence led some to claim it seeks to create a world police force with power over nation-states. The Vehmic Courts were a secret judicial system that operated mainly in Germany Westphalia from the 13th to the 19th century. They arose after the fragmentation of Saxony in 1180 during a period of weak central authority and were sanctioned by the Holy Roman Emperor and the Church to enforce law where official institutions were ineffective. They punished crimes like heresy, witchcraft, theft, and murder, claiming divine authority, sometimes pursuing vendettas and imposing arbitrary rulings. The courts were made up of Freischöffen, free judges, alongside higher-ranking Stuhlherren and executioners called Fronboten. Members concealed their identities with robes and masks and swore oaths of secrecy under penalty of death. Joining required rigorous initiation. Trials were mainly held in secret at night in caves or forests. The accused had to prove innocence by oath or witnesses. Death by hanging was the only punishment. By the 15th century, the rise of centralized state power reduced their influence. The Vehmic Courts were finally abolished in 1811 by Jérôme Bonaparte, King of Westphalia. Ordo Templi Orientis is an occult secret society and hermetic magical order founded in 1902 by German occultist Karl Kellner. It was originally modeled on Freemasonry and only Freemasons could join. The group became closely linked to English occultist Aleister Crowley, who restructured it around his own religious system, Thelema, after assuming leadership. Thelema is based on Crowley's claim of receiving a divine revelation in Cairo in 1904, dictated by a supernatural entity named I Was. OTO emphasized individual liberty, self-discipline and universal brotherhood while stopping its Masonic initiations. Its rituals and practices remain heavily influenced by Crowley, including controversial sexual rites such as the so-called Eighth Ritual, bringing about the birth of a moonchild or the Antichrist. Crowley, often branded the wickedest man in the world, was even targeted by Hitler. His work later influenced figures like L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, who studied his teachings and was said to have engaged with OTO practices. After Crowley's death in 1947, the order fragmented into multiple branches, each claiming legitimacy. OTO continues today as a legally recognized religious organization in many countries, with lodges worldwide. Membership remains small and the group does not actively recruit, though it maintains a hierarchical structure with reverence towards its leader. Fraternitas Saturni is a German magical order founded in 1926 by Eugen Grosche in Berlin. It focuses on spiritual evolution through occult study, emphasizing the left-hand path, which prioritizes black magic, self-deification, domination, and breaking societal taboos. The order studied Gnosticism, ancient mysteries, Kabbalah, astrology, magic, hypnosis, and sexuality, publishing the journal Saturnosis on astral demons and occult practices. Despite being banned under the National Socialists in 1933, it survived and was re-established in West Berlin in 1950. Lodges continue today in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Schnez-Truppe was an illegal clandestine paramilitary force created in West Germany in 1949 by Wehrmacht Colonel Albert Schnez. Composed of veterans from the Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS, it operated mainly in the US occupation zone in southern Germany, preparing for both external and internal conflict without any knowledge from the government while circumventing Allied oversight. 4 armored divisions were planned, stationed in neutral countries like Switzerland or Francoist Spain. The force aimed to defend West Germany against Soviet aggression and act domestically against communists in the event of civil war. The organization maintained ties with former SS officers like Otto Skorzeny, while also surveilling left-wing politicians and compiling blacklists of suspected communists. By 1951, Schnez offered the group's services to the Gehlen organization, the forerunner of West Germany's Foreign Intelligence Service. Chancellor Konrad Adenauer was aware of the group, but chose to monitor it rather than shut it down. At its height, the secret army could call on 40,000 fighters. The ultimate fate of the Schnez-Truppe remains uncertain, but many of its members later joined high ranks in the Bundeswehr Army or NATO. The existence of the Schnez-Truppe remained hidden from the public until 2014, when historian Agilolf Kesselring revealed it. The Maguires were a secret society of Irish workers with roots in the 1840s who fought against harsh landlords by disguising themselves in women's clothing and blackened faces to carry out protests and attacks. Large waves of Irish immigrants brought the tradition to America in the 1860s, particularly to Pennsylvania's coal mines where Irish Catholic miners faced exploitation, unsafe conditions and discrimination. In the coal fields, the Mollies allegedly used violence, including assassinations of foremen and supervisors, to resist exploitation and conscription during the Civil War. Through disguises and night raids, they concealed their identities while intimidating mine operators and strikebreakers. When their organizing threatened the profits of the Reading Railroad, the company hired a Pinkerton detective to infiltrate the group. His testimony led to a series of trials in the 1870s in which 20 Mollies were hanged. The trials were deeply biased, with mining and railroad officials serving as prosecutors, no Irish Catholics on juries, and questionable evidence. The Bogomils were a 10th century Gnostic Christian sect originating in Bulgaria, possibly founded by a priest named Bogomil. They believed in two divine beings, a good spiritual god and an evil creator of the material world, and saw the earthly realm as corrupt. Rejecting the Old Testament, church hierarchy, the cross, and material life, they practiced asceticism, poverty, and abstention from meat, wine, and marriage. Their teachings promoted resistance to state and church authorities, scorn for the rich, and non-compliance by serfs. Persecuted as heretics, they operated covertly. Hidden home gatherings and coded texts shielded their group. The Bogomils influenced other dualist movements, including the Cathars, but their exact legacy and historical persecutions remain poorly documented. The Seventh Society is a secret society at the University of Virginia, dating back to at least 1905, when its symbol, a 7 surrounded by alpha, omega, and infinity signs, first appeared in the school's yearbook. Its origins are uncertain. Unlike many collegiate societies, it has maintained an air of benevolence, focusing on philanthropy rather than influence. Membership is one of its best-kept secrets, revealed only upon death. When a member dies, a wreath of black magnolias in the shape of a 7 is placed at their grave, and the university chapel bells toll at 7-second intervals, 7 minutes past the hour. The society has been more progressive than others in terms of gender equality, with its first female member revealed in 1958. The group is best known for dramatic donations and acts of charity. In 1947, during commencement, a check with a lot of 7s in it floated down after a small explosion of smoke. The society communicates only through letters left at the statue of Thomas Jefferson in the rotunda. The ancient mystical Order of the Rosy Cross is the largest modern Rosicrucian organization, founded in 1915 in the US by Harvey Spencer Lewis. It presents itself as the continuation of Rosicrucianism, a mystical current from 17th century Europe, but traditionally traced back to ancient wisdom traditions from Egypt and Greece. AMORC is structured through 12 grand lodges, divided by language and geography, and led by a grand imperator. Though open to people of all backgrounds, it maintains oaths of secrecy, private rituals, and a degree-based initiation. AMORC teaches that individuals can reach mastery of mind and spirit and contribute to humanity's progress. Its philosophical ideals echo those of early Rosicrucian manifestos, which envisioned the regeneration of humanity through wisdom, education, and universal knowledge. AA, or Argenteum Astrum, was founded in 1907 by Aleister Crowley and George Cecil Jones as a successor to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which had collapsed after internal disputes. AA describes itself as having been present in all societies and epochs, though not always under the same name. Dedicated to spiritual enlightenment under the maxim "do what you want," it combined meditation and ceremonial magic within a hierarchical system. Members advanced through many ranks, mirroring the Kabbalistic tree of life from Jewish mysticism. Members worked in isolation, guided only by their direct superior in a strict teacher-student chain. Members at lower levels were expected to publicly declare their affiliation, while higher initiates were bound to secrecy. After Crowley's death in 1947, the order fragmented but allegedly still exists today.